Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 278. This week, we actually have a lot of game updates. We have the updates regarding the 915, which has covered a lot of different wishes from the player base since a very long time ago. So it was a really nice surprise to have that coming since last week. We also have some updates on Classic, and as the discussions points continue, we do also have some developments of the lawsuit as well. Before we jump into anything, though, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Annie, or also known as Annie Fuchsia, and my co host is the lovely Perculia, who happens to have Brightpaw in her company right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you heard him purring, but he was purring pretty recently. He just fell asleep on my lap. But yeah, thanks for the intro. I'm Perk. I run Wowhead, so I see the news and guides and tools you see on the site. And it's nice to be in front of the camera and share what's been going on with everyone who uses the site. And Brightpaw does cute reactions. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we have a lot to talk about. 915 is kind of a lot of crowd pleaser, quality of life updates. But then oh my god, right paw. We also have um some important lawsuit developments as well that are serious but important to discuss on the show, and then a lot of things with promotions or like games adjacent to WoW. Like there's a Hearthstone mount available in WoW. Burning Crusade Classic Fresh confirmed. The Phase 2 content is starting to roll out. And so lots of things that Blizzard seems to have planned for quarter 3.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think we can start with the 915 stuff and then the other Blizzard news, and ending on a more serious note with the lawsuit. And I'm going to attempt to put the cat down first because he seems
Aw.
very precarious.
Yep.
Um,
He's like, hey, I'm comfortable here now, Mom. I think I might just stay here.
oh no, he's meowing when I'm trying to move him. So I guess he'll stay here and there'll be a microphone disaster in like 5 minutes when he gets bored.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I'm sure that'll be fine.
yeah. So yeah, why don't we start with 915 and uh I think dive into the topic
Oh,
that made most people happy but not Brightpaw, which is the Covenant news. So Annie, why don't you discuss it as I deal with Brightpaw trying to kill me?
yes, yes. So first of all, very, very big news for many, many players. Swapping between covenants has is now just around the corner, apparently. This has been a wish from players since day one, pretty much, even since beta. This was a topic discussed. People want to be able to swap covenants. At first, it was impossible, and then some quests were added to make it where you can sometimes swap it. But even then, there were some complications. But now it's pretty much official that you should be able to easily and whenever you want swap between them, which is pretty huge and not something that most of us were expecting for 915. It's something that we were probably going to see, we thought, in 9.2 or 9.3, if that's still going to be a patch. But now we have it in 915, which is pretty huge.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of things in this patch are surprising to players. Um, and I think that what's also surprising is Blizzard trying to be more candid than usual in explaining the
Definitely.
changes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, they're saying, the advantages of a rigid division between covenants has diminished since Shadowland launches. The balance of factors no longer justifies the original limitations on covenant swapping. So it seems like they are trying to be better at, realizing that some of their old philosophies didn't actually vibe with the state the game ended up in. So hopefully, this means that in the future, if there's something similar, they won't go down the same path with systems, but instead they'll, uh, you know, have more flexibility in the system to begin with and use the whole Covenant past year as a learning experience.
Yeah. Well, my worry is still here that the wording of the decision to not be able to swap covenants, I think Blizzard still thinks that was the good move. right? Because they still say that it was important for people to experience Shadowlands, from the lens of the covenant that they picked. And so it seems like if they would redo Shadowlands, they would still decide to do it in the same way. Whereas the Conduit energy, which is the
Yeah,
next
that's right.
topic
That
here,
that was more like, yeah, we messed up. That
yeah,
I agree. That was him. That was worded better.
yeah, Conduit energy removed. They simply said, yep, we messed up. We should have done it since day one, which is you know nice to hear at least that it's been understood. Shouldn't have taken this long, but it's been understood and admitted to be at fault. But the swapping of covenants is not, and I mean, I guess that's like a design philosophy that you somewhat have to accept, I suppose. um but at the same time, I don't know, like, how do you feel about that perk? Like, do you think that they're that Blizzard is wrong with giving the explanation to why they think it's a good idea at this point, or do you think at this point it's better to realize that it should never have been like that?
Happy they made the decision in the first place, but uh I think the tension comes back to the problem of, should covenants have been like more of a RP or quest or
That's a good point.
cosmetic
Yeah,
experience? Like,
yeah,
I think that choosing a covenant, um as it makes sense in the Change of Domination story, makes sense. And Blizzard is even saying, oh, at this point in the game, the covenants are united. It makes sense to swap in a story mode. I think that, like, the player power maybe didn't need to be tied to covenants in the first place. Like, maybe
yeah.
as you like are working to get together, that's how you can use another covenant's soul bind. Like, logically it would make sense that as you're trying to unite them, you could draw upon, power of the leaders no matter what covenant you're in. So I could
You're
see,
right.
I think the choice would have still been impactful if you didn't have the player power attached to it. There still would have been a lot of story tied to it. Um,
Yeah,
the
that's a very
post
good
does
point.
say that, like, the downsides of feeling disadvantaged in certain types of content or choosing between advantages and aesthetics have only grown. I think it's good that Blizzard does mention that there are downsides, but I think like, those are really big downsides, and I think they downplay them in their blue post. Um, they're all like, oh, it's impactful, like, it makes you feel good, but the downsides are growing. I think it's like the downsides really outweigh any like temporary sort of immersion satisfaction you got from initially picking one. So
Mm-hmm.
uh I feel like they're kind of getting there. They don't, I don't think this fully conveys that they understand the situation, and like I said, I don't think they realize how much of a downside
Yeah.
choosing between feeling disadvantaged at content, or
Mm-hmm.
doing good DPS versus aesthetics.
Yeah.
I'd argue that, because you can't choose your aesthetic if you have to choose between performing well and aesthetic, that can feel immersion breaking. Like,
Of
suppose you want to
course.
be a nature aesthetic, but you have to be like a
Mm-hmm.
vampire because that's good for your DPS.
Yeah,
So,
and that is realistically what most people did. Most people would
right.
quickly Wowhead to double check what spec they should be playing and went with that. And for some people, they were lucky and got, the covenant that they wanted, like me, Warlock, Night Fae. But some people were forced to pick something that was not good for them. Sorry, that was not attractive for them, but they did it because that was the power move. Um, a lot of sometimes I think there's a misconception or like a just wrong reading of players that most people play what they want, but even casual players tend to gravitate towards what is better. Even people who are not hardcore will do that. So I think, like you said, if the covenants from the beginning just were not power based, I don't think there would even be any talk on swapping covenants. People would have been happy with how it is because, well, they picked an aesthetic, and of course, it makes sense that they would stick to that aesthetic for the rest of expansion, even. I don't think there would be any complaints until like the last patch, even. Um, maybe from completion people like myself who have to who want to maybe collect everything from all the covenants on the same character, but apart from that I don't think there would be that much outrage. So that's actually a very good point. If power was simply stripped off of the covenants, I think their intention and their design with how the covenants were supposed to work out with lore and story could have worked out. It's just that the power removed all of the importance of it.
Yeah, like rereading this blue post, they're saying, millions of players experience Shadowlands for the first time through the lens of their Covenant choice, and that would have not been possible had the choice carried less weight from the outset. But like that just sounds so wishy-washy.
Yeah.
Like it's so intangible. But the downside of like you feel disadvantaged in PvE content, like that to me is a very
And
concrete thing that
PvP.
feels bad.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
100%.
like yeah, so to me, it's like this very sort of fluffy, like you had this momentous covenant choice, and it's like, well, so like how do you how do we break that down further? Like, did you feel, was it momentous in the course of the story? Okay, then maybe we don't need player power attached to it. Maybe we just make it like purely like a lore uh aesthetic thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I hope that like Blizzard seems maybe 50% of the way here in this blue post, and maybe seeing the community reaction to this will get them further along the way for the next system like this. But yeah, I think they should realize that people feeling that they are the wrong covenant for certain types of content, and that they can't pick the aesthetic they want to for performance reasons is a very serious issue, especially, going back to Final Fantasy with, the jokes that glamour is the end game and all the customization and things you can collect. It seems that making people choose between DPS and like your personal expression is a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, and I hope also with the recent eyes that Final Fantasy have received now, the recent attention that it's been receiving will hopefully also make Blizzard also realize how story and glam, transmog and things like that can be interesting and appealing for people without forcing it to have power. Like the Covenant thing
Mm.
would have been interesting for people, even if there was no power involved. Or at least make it so like each Covenant has the same power, the same ability or no ability, whatever you want to pick it as long as you pick one covenant, like you're good. So it doesn't really matter which one you pick. Then people will end up gravitating towards what they think look best, and then there you go, player
Yeah.
choice.
I mean, you could
Not
even build it
which.
into the story where, like, as you try to unite the covenants, uh, you talk to leaders from the other covenants, and
Yeah.
then, like, after a certain week, like, everyone, like, that's how you get the other, like, use of the other soul binds. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, new champion, as you've pledged yourself to the Kyrian, and the first step you need to do is, you know, parlay with the other realms, and like you just unlock that right at the start. So
Mm-hmm.
you still have that story choice of like feeling like you're helping one leader, but mechanically you're still on equal ground with everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I remember
yeah,
in
let's talk a
I think
little.
it
Go
was
ahead.
beta as like the last point. I think it
Mhm.
was during beta or something where we were talking about it and how people were saying even then, covenants just strip off the
Oh
powers.
yeah.
It's not needed. It don't make covenants as like related to power, and I remember even then there were tons of different ideas, very creative ideas of what could have been done instead, and I still stick to that idea of give the exact same abilities across from any covenant as long as you reach the
Mhm.
renown or whatever, and instead give them different aesthetics. So let's say
Yeah.
if you decide to give them a I don't know, some kind of AoE damage ability, then they will all be the AoE damage ability, but they will look different. I think that alone would have been really cool.
Yeah, I was also going to say that Blizzard is talking about how the data shows that millions of players chose a covenant. Um, when you look at the high end level, people really gravitate towards the covenant that is best. And I think in the past, Blizzard has tried to say that, oh, like we've seen, healthy covenant representation, and maybe at lower levels where yes, you have someone that's every weird, covenant class combo, but that's not for people that are regularly playing. Or, for example, there's a freelancer who does a ton of collection on Wowhead, and he has an alt of like every class covenant combo to help with collecting. But it's
Yeah.
like he's purely doing that for collecting. He's not like, he hasn't picked them for the gameplay. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that Blizzard could take a harder look at some of their data before, instead of like, cherry picking what seems to further one of their
Yeah.
goals.
And I think saying something like that also is very questionable because what have you looked at in that case? Because if you look at from
Yeah.
spec to spec, I don't think it's balanced at all. Like if you look at, oh, how many Affliction Warlocks have picked something that's not Night Fae? That's going to be extremely low, even from the casual
Mm.
players. Like people have gravitated towards what is best when the difference between them is so big. If there were smaller
Mm.
differences between them, maybe there has been some cases where it's a little bit mixed, but it's definitely not mixed. And especially if you look at it like, okay, maybe in some specs there is a more balanced difference between them, but maybe that's because, well, one covenant was good for PvE, one was good for PvP. Therefore, that player base that are choosing between those two covenants have now been split because it's for two different purposes. But if you basically any kind of stats on this is not going to prove anything. You have to look at it specifically. PvP, this spec, what have they picked? And like 80% of people have picked what is best and nothing different.
Yeah. I also think that keeping the covenants as separate but balanced was something that Blizzard tried to say they were going to attempt to do during the beta, and that's clearly not turned out as people, gravitate towards the best thing, like you were saying with Affliction Warlocks. I wonder if the decision to pull the ripcord is an acknowledgement that it's really difficult to balance all these soul binds and covenant abilities easily, and
Yeah,
public
because it's
perception.
complicated and they
Yeah.
shouldn't waste the time balancing all those things anyways. They should
Yeah.
waste time, creating new things instead.
Yeah, and that reminds me of how they were trying to really hire for the combat team recently, with
Mm-hmm.
someone specifically focused on tuning, and then someone on PvE, and then someone on more PvP game design stuff. So to me, that shows that they're recognizing that if the sort of end game work was the thing that delayed Shadowlands, and now they're still trying to hire to get that right, and Shards of Domination is getting more hot fixes. That tuning all of these systems in their current state is really complicated and
Yeah,
difficult
absolutely.
to get right. So maybe this pulling of the ripcord is an acknowledgement of, okay, like, yes, this did not work out as intended. We're going to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, change some things. But there's still the question of, why do we have these temporary systems that take a while to get right, and then when they're in a better place, we abandon them and then
Yeah.
move on to the new system that is, one expansion long. It just seems like really inefficient
Mm-hmm.
for development.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with that. It's like a wasted it's like wasted time. You've spent X amount of hours balancing systems, and then later on they don't even stay in the game. So what was the point? And I think that's another thing that I've seen a lot now with Final Fantasy. How apparently they rarely ever suffer much balancing things, and well, no wonder because there's nothing much to balance. If you just remove systems, it will become easier to balance things because the issue is, like you said, there's so many different parts that affect the damage. If you, let's say you balance it perfectly, and then like a couple item levels later and everything is out of sync again, and then like one class scaled like crazy, one class was unexpectedly not very strong anymore, and like there's too many factors. And one way to make that a little bit easier is to simplify it. Go back in time a bit and just remove a few systems.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole make something very complicated and then abandon it is something that Blizzard needs to learn from most of their questing. Getting a little afield, but we were talking about how Blizzard could learn things about story from Final Fantasy, and it seems that the old story in Final Fantasy still has value, while Blizzard is moving in the direction of, actually, you can skip a ton of our stories, and all this old content is irrelevant. So it's just this trend of creating something very uh, complex that then gets abandoned soon after, and that doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
seem sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, why don't we discuss the conduit energy a bit, because this is what I thought had the a better response
Yeah.
in the blue post. So, right, Paul, what did you do? Oh, he put this in phone mode, so now I can't see anything on my screen.
But
Let's
yeah, the conduit
yeah.
energy is now officially going to be removed with patch 915. And the wording of it is let's see. No, okay, actually, I don't see the completing Covenant campaign on one character will allow alternate characters the ability to skip that same Covenant's campaign. Oh yeah, that's something else.
I think that the thing that I found confusing about this update was that Blizzard had like a Shadowlands development update, a message from the devs, and then a 915 content update, and they all said um similar things, except they didn't quite say the same thing, and they all took different tones. Like, one article was like
Yeah, I'm looking for
very
the line
factual.
that I remember from a few days ago,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
no, I
not in this
found
blue
it.
post.
Okay, I found. Yeah, that's why there was another. I'm linking it. 1 second.
Okay.
Uh,
But yeah,
okay.
the statement that I see here is just
Yeah,
conduit
yeah,
energy is being removed and conduits will be freely swappable
yeah.
without any restrictions.
Okay, yeah. I just pasted that in the notes if you wanna.
Yeah, here it is. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
this was the thing that I was looking for, and I was like, it's not here in this blue post. Okay,
yeah.
different blue post.
Mhm.
Conduit energy is a different story. The system simply has not played out the way we hoped it would. We should have heeded community feedback and taken a different direction a year ago. A majority of players largely ignore the system, me included, and are unaffected by it, while the minority who want to engage in multiple content types competitively feel constrained by it. Overall, that adds up to a negative experience. Conduit energy isn't really making the game better in any appreciable way, so we're removing the system entirely. So it's a straight up like just admitting, hey, this was a bad idea and it did not work out the way that we anticipated. Surprise. It should not have taken this long, honestly. I have seen Twitter posts and comments from players, PvPers, PvEers, all sorts of players, anyone who, puts effort into their character, that it's just frustrating. Any kind of build
Yeah,
change, and they have to wait a few days to be able to play around with things. And I had never really gotten into that situation where I ran out of conduit energy. So I remember feeling like, hey, why aren't they fixing that? When most players, probably like myself, won't even be affected, won't even notice if it changes or not, then why not let people play around with it?
yeah. Also earlier in the Shadowlands development update post, I liked how they said, while we hope many players will be pleased at the increased accessibility and freedom for experimentation these changes will permit, we know that you might be wondering why we didn't make adjustments like these sooner. After all, a large portion of the community has been vocal about wanting to see changes along these lines since mid 2020 when Shadowlands was still in beta. So I'm glad that they actually acknowledge that the
Yeah,
feedback timeline.
yeah.
And while I disagree with the limitations on covenant switching, I'm glad that they seem to still be kind of in favor of that, but I'm glad that they tried to at least acknowledge that this has been discussed since mid 2020,
Mm-hmm.
and some accountability for it. And I do think that the conduit energy had a better tone than the
Mm-hmm.
covenant switching.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. It was a
yeah.
much better tone.
And then finally, the for collectors, the cosmetic restrictions on Covenant items will be lifted in 915.
Yeah, I thought that was
I'm
interesting.
still a little unsure about some things, but the transmog sets can be used if you are no longer a member of that Covenant. I don't know if that means that if like mounts or pets are considered cosmetic rewards, but
Oh, that's a good
that
point.
would be
Mm-hmm.
cool as well.
Yeah, that
Um,
is actually interesting. I'm not sure if I like that. I feel like I think that restriction would have been fine to keep for the rest of the expansion, because I think it feels wrong to look like a necrolord and then you're chilling in like Ardenweald, like in the base where no one else is supposed to access. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's not bad, but I don't see how it's necessary. I feel like that's more of a thing for past this expansion that would have made more sense, but I'm sure it's a welcome change for many people, so I don't mind.
Yeah, it feels like this would be good in like 10.0, or
Yeah,
maybe they're I don't know, maybe they're thinking that if someone doesn't have a lot of alts, maybe they could, grind more stuff on their main to keep them interested, or
I mean you can
have
still
more
grind it, right? You just can't use
yeah,
it.
yeah, or like maybe like more transmog options to keep
Yeah.
things fresh. Um, but yeah, it does seem um maybe they're just trying to overcorrect for uh how they were feeling bad that people had to
Mhm.
choose between
Mhm.
aesthetics and
Mhm.
mechanical
Yeah.
performance.
I think at the end of the day, it's better with too much freedom than too much
Yeah.
restriction. So I think it's okay. But it's something that I would have found acceptable, at least until the end of the expansion. Because in terms of grinding, for example, so if covenant swapping is allowed, that means as soon as I swap to Necrolord, for example, then I have access to all the Necrolord transmogs, right? And then if I
Hmm.
swap back to Nightfade, then I'd have access to those again. So I think you could still swap to grind things, but maybe just not use it. I don't know.
Or
It's
maybe
a
they're like, oh,
minor thing, anyways. I'm
if you're
happy
like
with
in a
more
raid
freedom.
and you have to
Yeah,
like go a certain covenant to raid, but like you want to have a certain transmog for like the kill screenshot, or I don't know, like RP or
yeah,
story reasons, your character would like, you know, be dressed as a Venthyr, while doing Castle Natria,
mm-hmm.
and you don't want to. Maybe yes, you could swap to Night Bay, but you still want to look like a Venthyr.
Yeah,
So yeah, like I think too much freedom is, better than
yeah. Better than too much
not
restriction.
enough.
So for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. So it's it's
Yeah.
it's a positive.
But yeah, speaking of customizations, I think the next topic we wanted to highlight is, you know, the customization options coming to allied races after
Oh yeah.
Blizzard said back in February that there would not be updates to anything in Shadowlands.
Yeah, no more customizations in Shadowlands. Sorry, guys. More important things to do. Um, but apparently that was changed because we are getting more customization options. And some of these look really cool. I have a slideshow here to show you guys.
Yeah, so the Lightforged Deny and Nightborn are getting the most. The Nightborn especially needed them, and then Void Elves are getting some options that the Blood Elves had, so it makes sense to just make things equal.
Mm-hmm.
These were allied races that started off at the time. They looked like really cool and different at the end of um, Legion going into BFA, but then after Shadowlands customization, they lag behind the original races.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that all of these are cool. Like I like the new Draenei hair colors and being able to choose like which golden tint you want the tattoos to be. Um, I think that the Nightborn getting more jewelry really makes sense with how elegant the race is.
True.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's nice that Void Elves have some hair colors that aren't, like blue, black, and sparkly for a change. You can
Yeah.
look more like a Blood Elf that way.
Mm-hmm.
Do
Yeah,
any
I
of these
think I
stand
think
out
they're
to
really
you?
nice. Um, let me pull it up again. Do you have anything in particular?
I think that I like
They're getting
the
red
light
hair.
for. Yeah, oh yeah, you could make yourself as a Void Elf.
Yeah.
I think that I like the Light Forged Draenei female slide, like the close up of the top left. with the horn
Ah, with the
jewelry.
jewelry. Yeah, I see
Yeah,
it.
I think that looks cool.
Mm,
And then even like the other one at the far right has the tips on the horns. I think all that looks really cool.
that does look really cool. I like that too.
Um,
Uh, I'm. I think I'm especially happy with the hair options. But the jewelry in general on Draenei is looking really good on Light 4 Draenei. Like even the male ones, it covers the entire back piece, which is
yeah.
pretty huge actually. Here, if I quickly show it here, there.
Yeah, and the option to, with hide chest with transmog and,
Exactly.
more
Mm-hmm.
slots now, you can really get like a vibe, just wearing like armored pants and having all these tattoos visible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Definitely. And I
but
think
yeah, I think
especially lately checking other games too, not just Final Fantasy, but other games as well. I do see a lot of really cool customization things, and that's when you really realize how the customization in WoW has been really lacking. And with Shadowlands, we've been given a lot more options, but there's still room for more. And I think it's a really good decision that they added these things now.
yeah, I think the lawsuit made them the lawsuit coverage kind of put the customization into context of, Blizzard was trying to
Oh, absolutely.
revamp things, be more diverse than they were, and how it looked really bad for Blizzard to, just be like, oh, we did one round of customization, we're done, this isn't, we're not getting metrics from this, time to move on to systems again. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and when the lawsuit broke, a lot of people were criticizing Blizzard that it took them forever to catch up on customization options, and then they just sort of dropped it, out of the blue. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that maybe it wasn't all the lawsuit. Maybe it was like, hey team, how can we be more alt and casual friendly? But I do think that the criticism and reflecting on how customization went did contribute to the decision to go back on their word at BlizzCon and actually add more of these customization options.
Yeah, I think a lot of these things, like some people think that because lawsuit happened, Blizzard just snapped their fingers and created these things in the last couple weeks. And the truth is that Blizzard probably works on many things at all times, right? And then they
Mm.
have to prioritize things. And like you said, the customizations that happen at the beginning of Shadowlands, they probably realize like, hey, this isn't doing that much to our metrics. We need to focus more time on things that will help our metrics. So then they were like, yeah, not for Shadowlands, but maybe later. And they probably even at that point had lots of like almost finished but not really pieces of items or different projects that they decided to shelf for now
Hmm.
and mark it as not important. Um, and then as this happened now, this probably gave a lot of pressure on
Yeah.
Blizzard to do better, and then they have to reconsider all those things that they had shelved for like later fixes in the future to maybe have to prioritize now. A lot of the
Hmm.
fixes that we see, especially to do with systems like conduit energy being removed, is something that people did expect to happen, but not now, right? Like people were expecting that to
Hmm.
happen in like 9.3 or something, or whatever the last patch is, and now it's happening in 9.15, and I think that's pretty huge. And hopefully, this is not only because of the sort of desperation of what's going on now. Hopefully, this is something that Blizzard will now have to keep on doing, to having to listen to feedback and actually give back without extending things, extending problems
Yeah.
for so long periods.
Yeah, and thinking about the impact of something beyond an immediate metric, like with the customization, people were disappointed and it put a damper at BlizzCon line. And then, I keep reading editorials from various, journalism sites being like, oh, yeah, I used to play WoW and then I was weirded out, with the whole customization debacle, or I thought it was weird that I could never make a character that looked like myself, like, and I
Yeah.
review so many games and they've got so much more than WoW. So, yeah, I mean, customization may not have been a metric directly tied to players subscribing, but just seeing the PR and how it sort of lodged itself in players' heads and came to a boil when the spotlight was on them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll reflect in the future. Or, like, yes, we had people logging on to, do their dailies, and, they chose their covenant, but were they happy? Did they view us favorably? Did they enjoy doing this? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe this will make them think more critically instead of, like, picking stuff from the data to suit a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Having to be more sophisticated about why people are doing things, and are they, if the metrics are good, are they still really close to being fed up and playing a different game that makes them feel happier, especially if they don't have a ton of time to play per day or per week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So yeah, why don't we discuss some of these alt-friendly improvements? Because there's a
Yep.
bunch of like little things that we don't know
Mm-hmm.
a ton about. But we're going along with what you were saying, how these seemed like they could have been planned for 9.3, but then they got bumped up to appeal to casual and alt players. Um, Not all of these are super meaty, but we should just talk about the ones that got really big reactions, starting with the Maw intro will be skippable. Players who have
Yep.
completed the introduction on the Maw on one character can then skip it on alts in the future.
Yep. This is also another thing that should have been done a very long time ago. I remember doing these on all my alts, and I
It
was
takes
even
so much
late.
time.
They
It's
they
like an
do.
hour. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And the worst part of some of that time is just following characters, like the escort quests, like with Jaina. So you can't even kind of like, you can't be on complete autopilot either. You have to like, you have to read and see what's going on. So it was not fun to do that on alts. So I'm glad that is now fixed, but it should have definitely been done before.
Yeah, going back to crafting the story as well, I think that if they make like an experience that is slow the first time through and it has like dramatic moments and you're
Mm-hmm.
following characters around, like it's very immersive, but then it's hard to design something like that to have like replayability if you're trying to rush through it on an alt. But if Blizzard gives themselves the flexibility to say, on alts you can skip these tedious things, then maybe they feel they have more flexibility to like go all out with like your first time, experience, making it
Yeah.
memorable instead of trying to be like, oh, we're trying to design this super interesting detailed quest experience while also making it, not too intense so an alt can, suffer through it. So I think it's good if they can just, make something skippable,
Yeah.
um,
Let me
and
make the
that
monitor
way,
3 hours, but then
yeah.
skippable after doing it
Yeah.
once. Yeah,
Yeah, like I know
exactly.
there's been lots of talk about how like other games the story feels more immersive or it's like a dialogue between you and the other characters. So it's like, well, go all out. Like have your character actually talking to Jaina. Maybe that adds a little more time, but then your alts can skip that super long quest in the future.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Uh,
Because like the
so
first
yeah.
time I did the Ma intro, I actually enjoyed it. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't bad. I thought it was cool, for seeing this new place and these
Yeah, like it builds
characters and
suspense. Like, yeah, I thought the
yeah.
pacing was cool.
But
And then it's
then
like,
when I had to do it the second time and then the third time and then the fourth time because I'm one of those people who have too many characters, then it's not fun anymore. Then it's
right.
annoying, and especially when you keep failing the escort quests because you're not completely focused. And it's like, I've already done this 10 times. Like, do I really need to focus to make sure that I'm not missing the characters that I'm escorting? It would have been nice if this was just not like that from the beginning. I mean, we had campaign skips, didn't we, from the very beginning? Um, I
Yeah,
think,
there were more things added in 9.1, and people were like, oh, that's a good step, but why don't you do it for them all? Like, they could have been
yeah,
added when they added the skips
yeah.
a few months ago.
I mean, there were some skips that were there, I think, even since day one. I don't remember what part it was. The part where you pick a covenant, I think. Maybe?
Yeah, I think that was there.
I think it was
But
there
it,
since
yeah,
day one,
it
wasn't
was
it?
weird when they added even more in June, and then they just skipped over this. It's like, why are you
Yeah.
still making people do this? It's been like 6, 7 months.
Yeah, like you've made it
Uh,
alt friendlier. Why not make it like completely alt friendly? What are we waiting for?
yeah. So, maybe this like maybe this was planned for 9.3, but I hope the lawsuit is a common theme, like sort of made them realize like that they had gone through a lot of players' goodwill,
Mm-hmm.
and they needed, like, it just sort of brought things to a head that they need to adjust how they uh
Mm-hmm.
design the game. So hopefully it's part of like a bigger shift and less like, oh no, like number go down, like, give them what they want.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's part of a larger shift where they are trying to realize that, like, in
Improve.
2021 players interact with the game differently. There are more, games
Mm-hmm.
than before. MMOs having like a resurgence, so they need to adapt their formula
Mm-hmm.
moving forward.
Indeed.
um We've got some more alt leveling improvements. Again, PTR is not up at the time of recording this, so
Yeah, this one's really
we just have a
interesting.
sentence to go by. But it's there will be an additional rank of heirloom upgrades, improvements to Threads of Fate, such as the addition of Torghast as an option for leveling, and renown gains for completing bonus objectives.
Yeah,
So
that's
that all
huge.
seems good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Torghast is leveling. People were asking for that at launch. I feel like Torghast like didn't get the resources it needed during the beta, and like
Yeah, no, it
they keep
didn't.
adding dimensions to it to make it better. Maybe not, amazing, but it keeps
It
getting
has
more
improved a
well-rounded.
lot, actually.
Yeah.
Like
And they
with,
said
mm-hmm.
good.
I was gonna say with the point system as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I even believe during the beta they were talking about how it would be cool to have Torghast for leveling. So it just, I feel like the system didn't get the full attention that like its full vision wasn't seen to completion at the start, and it is improving.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this should have been in as an option for
Yeah.
alts like a year ago.
Yeah, sadly, a lot of these things just reminds me of how it was in BFA as well, because there would be feedback, and then Blizzard was like, "Nah, like we know what we're doing. Like this is gonna be the thing." And then the expansion goes past, and then like, "Oh, actually, yeah, you guys were kind of right. Maybe we should add this." And then it was added later, and I was hoping that it wouldn't be like that, when BFA is
Mm.
over. I was hoping, okay, this is a fresh start. It's not going to be an expansion where there's a new system every patch, and all the quality things won't be added as the last patch. It's going to be there from the beginning.
Mm.
And it seems like it's still very similar, although these changes now have been faster than expected. We have seen a lot of improvements now coming from 915, and that does make me hopeful, honestly. I just hope that it's a continuous thing that will a thing that will continue in the future too, not just now. I think that would be great.
I mean, you could say that, I mean, reading the lawsuit reports, besides the, like most important, stories of like the discrimination and harassment, like just the general vibe of the office seemed like such a mess. Like, how did
Mm-hmm.
any work get done? It seemed like
Yeah.
super disorganized, and just like there weren't proper systems in place, or like there just was a lot of opportunities for like people being thrown under the bus, or like office politics.
Yeah.
So this didn't seem like a good work environment to like get communication, like especially if you were a new person, or suppose your idea was up against the a rock star dev's idea, who just thinks something would be epic like an azurite necklace. Like, it's there's I mean, I don't know who came up with the azurite necklace, but it's hard to maybe get your viewpoint across if there is someone with like a larger ego in charge of things, and the company
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
seem to
definitely.
be supportive for all voices.
Absolutely.
um
Like work dynamics have a big play in this for sure. And if because a lot of people have now left the company or been fired, so
mm,
maybe this new fresh blood will help actual work getting done, actual feedback being listened to. I guess we'll just wait and see. Because I do think that people who have continued actually trying things like Torghast now with the improvements, and this is before the leveling was announced, have said that it's better now. and people are actually enjoying doing Torghast with the new point system, scoring system. I think the thing that is most upsetting for people is the part where they feel like they're forced to for legendary. Um, so a lot of people are burnt out because of that. But in general, it's become a better place than it was before.
Seen quick on Twitter like retweeting some of the hot fixes like with emojis or just sounding really happy. And I want to make clear that he is the co-lead of Blizzard. He does not design WoW. But it's cool that he plays the games and seems passionate about it, and his persona is deliberately giving off like like I'm a gamer just like you. So I think it's good to show that the co-lead is still like actively playing and is sounding happy about the changes. And while I don't think he's designing WoW, I think having someone with the mentality of hey, I'm a player, we should implement things that we're happy about sharing, and having that personal touch is a good thing. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't think J. Allen Brack, had a Twitter or was ever being like, hey,
Yeah,
I'm proud our team made this anima change.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that the goodwill is definitely needed, and that down to earth approach as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think Mike, in general, has been very well received. People who've known him before and people who've gotten to know him later have all been very happy with how he views things. So hopefully, with him at the top, more people will be more encouraged and motivated to do better.
Yeah, like if he's taking the persona that, he's just a player and he's having fun and he's streaming and like talking to other content creators,
Mm-hmm.
um I think that like can inspire others on the team to,
Mm-hmm.
view things as, hey, I'm just a player too, instead of being like, oh, I am the rock star at Blizzard with, decisions that can, are untouchable.
Yeah.
So I think that even if, some of this is just a social media persona and he's not, being present at 915 tuning rooms, I just think it sets a good example in how
For
he's
sure.
conducting himself as the co-lead.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, whoever who was behind making things happen, when they see that their own co-lead is actually reading and listening and seeing what they're doing, then they'll be more happy to do the work as well, right? Like, if I'm working at a
Mhm.
company and my boss is happy tweeting about the things that I've done, I'll feel more appreciated than
Yeah.
somebody who acts like I don't even exist, or the things that I have done don't exist. So I think overall it's just a win from a morale point of view.
Yeah, exactly. And like I know in the past sometimes people are like, like does Blizzard get content creators, or does Blizzard understand the importance of streaming? Like some of them are acting like it's 15, 20 years ago. And I think that it's cool that one of the co-leads is streaming himself, actually playing the game. Seems to be like more hip to modern social media, like doesn't sound like
Mm-hmm.
a super stuffy person. um every audience is different, but he seems to know what the Blizzard audience would find relatable, and I think it also makes people hopeful. I mean, I never knew if that email from Jab was true about like disliking certain content creators, but I definitely think that by streaming and chatting with other creators, Mike Ybarra is trying to build more goodwill than just kind of being like a shadowy, person that doesn't, tweet or do social media besides BlizzCon.
Mm-hmm. No, I think Blizzard has always been a bit behind in terms of supporting content creators, for sure. I think like we used to have those launcher promotions, for example. Those projects were shut down, and
Mm.
I think I recently, a couple of weeks ago, I saw a new person on the launcher actually,
Oh,
which is really interesting because that means maybe that it's something that's going to start up again, and that's interesting because that project was scrapped like months ago.
yeah,
So,
with how the whole team
yeah.
got dismantled in Versailles
Yeah,
office.
exactly. Like
Sad
anyone who was
face.
working on those things were basically laid off. So, the people who were still
Yeah.
there weren't interested in taking care of it because they're not getting paid more. They don't have infinite hours. They're already, one person is already taking over like three people's worth of work.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah. But yeah, with the 915 stuff, another thing that's interesting, one of the more meteor topics is Legion time walking. It's coming in patch
Yeah, that's an
915,
interesting one. Mm-hmm.
and there's going to be a Mythic Plus version of the dungeons during the event, and the first Legion time walking event um will last for 2 weeks instead of one. And there's a lot of speculation as to what this will entail. Like, can you, push keys in Legion Mythic Plus dungeons? Will there be rewards for doing these? Is this a way to make time walking more serious?
Mm-hmm.
Because, right now it's like you just sort of do your weekly quest and that's it. So is this meant to be a way to make old content relevant again, like you were
Yeah.
discussing earlier? So it could
Mm-hmm.
be promising, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest issues with doing old content like this is a balancing thing to make it as close as possible to how it originally felt when doing them. So I think that this could definitely be a way for them to test and see if it's possible to do something like that, because that would also be endless replayability on it. Chances are this launches and everything is so crazy balanced that it doesn't last very long. But I think it's a good thing to try out, because that's also one of the things with Final Fantasy, which is really cool, that you can do old content at the appropriate item levels, meaning you can go back and do older raids how they're supposed to be done. And
Yeah.
I think especially in World of Warcraft, where I personally think some of the most amazing raids are in World of Warcraft, and if those raids can be replayed at the minimum item levels intended for them, the way that World First Raiders are downing them,
Yeah, with the challenge,
I think
not
that
just
would
like
be
a face
really
roll.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially previous expansion ones. I think that would be amazing if that was automated in some kind of way as a difficulty option for anyone who's choosing between, hey, normal, heroic, mythic. How about legacy or mid item
Yeah.
level? That would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, we've got so many time walking events, and there just seems to be like wasted potential
Mm-hmm.
with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe Blizzard, it's like they have got there by implementing the time walking tech, but now they need to fine tune it. So
Yeah, it
hopefully,
needs to be
this,
refined.
yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
also wonder, people have been wondering if like Mage Tower could make a return, because that's also from Legion and very well received.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it'd be tied to time walking, but I don't know. I wish they would just bring back Mage Tower content. I know they keep saying, "Oh, first we need uh a cool reward. If we have the reward, we'll make the content around it." But it's like, if people just want to do the content, maybe you should design
Yeah, maybe it doesn't need
the
reward.
yeah, or design the cool thing first and then tell the artist, "We are doing the super challenging content, like make awesome weapons for this."
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the content can come before the art.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, they do have cool art. I mean, we've got all those concept art for the mounts that weren't used, that people voted on. So,
That's also
you
true,
know,
yeah.
I'm sure the artists have lots of wild ideas that they'd be happy to make if they were told, "Hey, we're doing some
Mm-hmm.
super cool, unique content for the second half of Shadowlands. Like, make
And
something super epic looking."
we've also seen the amount of projects that that are community driven, project 60s, project 70s, project
Mm.
80s, and whatnot. um, Imagine if those projects were able to also go into the instances, dungeons and raids, and make it so that the difficulty and everything is scaled to what they're supposed to be. Like that would be so cool. I think
Yeah.
the twinking world would explode in interest, because I remember being in twinking guilds when none of this was actually
Mm.
done properly. People would just go in, kind of face roll everything, pick up items, and after a few weeks, you have all the gear you need, and then you kind of lose interest. But if it's actually kind of difficult content, then I could see people wanting to continue and do all different levels, and I think there's so much potential in that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that taking inspiration, obviously, like, not copying a feature from the community, but whether it's twinking or seeing the, crazy fan art concepts, fans come up with, I think that, you know, Blizzard can at least see what sort of things the community finds interesting to do if they
Mm-hmm.
are creating the content or, fantasizing about the rewards they would like.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good way to, be like, is this, project getting a lot of hype on social media, or people, resharing on like Facebook or Reddit, like this cool fan art or of, a jailer looking weapon. I think stuff like that, they can take some cues to be like, what makes people excited? Because, some of the 911 stuff, like Shards of Domination, does not sound exciting to a player. Or like, Korthia, it's
Yeah.
like you don't have that beautiful screenshot of the zone. So I think that you need some flashy things that appeal to what the community is looking for um,
Mm-hmm.
to keep interest in the second half of the expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Was there any other
I
915?
I think the legacy ray tuning is the final thing I wanted to mention.
Yes.
Um, they
This is something that might
which
not
yeah.
affect everyone, but for the few people that do go back for transmog reasons and similar, this has actually been a huge thing. I'm very surprised that this was now sort of addressed because it's such a small percentage of people that are affected by this. But it's nice to see. Basically, that legacy raid tuning is coming. There's been some raids that have become very difficult or maybe impossible that are now being tuned to fix it so that you're able to go back and do it. And I think together with this, also the looting of it. So Legion, I think, is going to be given the option to be treated as legacy loot, whereas it wasn't previously. Sorry, BFA. BFA will be
AFA.
possible to set as legacy loot, which it wasn't before.
Yeah, I mean, I like seeing things like this because um like you said, you were surprised to see it. Maybe Blizzard had a prompt to be like, okay, 9-1 was about all these endgame systems, new raid, Mythic Plus affix, new dungeon, super
Mm-hmm.
complicated shards of domination system, new reps tied to endgame things. Like, let's brainstorm and come up with things that would touch upon how other types of players enjoy playing WoW. Or, we have so much content. What can we do to make people look at older content like,
Mm-hmm.
time walking, or, alts in the maw, or people that are bored with leveling? And I feel like this maybe came out of a brainstorm session because, like you said, it doesn't affect a ton of players, but transmog is something that people do play WoW for, and it's a
For
fun
sure.
thing to
Mm-hmm.
do when there's not new content. It's a way to keep old content alive. So I think it's good if they're like, people that are mount or transmog collectors, maybe they have
Absolutely.
difficulty with these bosses. Let's do something to make them happy as well. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
not a lot
that's
of people are
exactly it.
affected, but I think it's good for the health of the
For
game
sure.
that they aren't just like focusing on like the esports and like the very top, cutting edge content.
Mm-hmm. I think the way you put it is actually a very good point. Imagine after the lawsuit and everything went down, they even had to walk out, and I think at some point work was at standstill. Even I'm
Mm,
sure in those moments, what they did was discuss these things. You know what? Let's bring back all the things that we shelved because
yeah.
you can imagine a lot of devs probably or like designers or whatever a lot of the people working at Blizzard probably want to fix those quote unquote small issues to make people happy, but a lot of times they are kind of forced to prioritize the things that they believe is better for metrics or whatever. So when the devs sit down and get a moment to uh, decide what they want to do, maybe this is what happened. They brought up all the very popular things, such as covenant swapping and conduit energy being removed, and then I'm sure there's a couple devs here and there like raise their hand and like, hey, I know this doesn't affect a lot of people, but it has been bugging me that we still haven't fixed the raid tuning. Like, it bothers me reading about all those people
Mm.
who are struggling about it. Like, maybe we can do that too. And I think at this point they were given the green light, whereas in the past maybe they wouldn't have been given it. Um, and maybe this is a proof of WoW devs feeling like they have more power. Because I don't know
Mm.
about people out there if you guys are following the different devs who are working on this game and everything, but if you check out their Twitters, they are so excited. They are so excited
Mm.
to give these news to us because they have been doing this for the past few weeks, and they are still working at Blizzard. That's the thing also that people forget, that there's people who have been abused or mistreated who are still working at Blizzard, and now they're finally able to do things that they've been wanting to do. So they're really excited about these changes, and it's probably because there have been different things that have been bugging them as well. From reading comments and feedback from people, things that they've been wanting to fix, and now they can finally fix them.
Yeah, I mean, also there's been, tweets from people that have left Blizzard talking about how, there was like a lot of internal struggles behind something or something
Mm-hmm.
that like seemed really like, smooth. There was actually like a lot of people pushing behind the scenes to prevent like a PR fiasco with something. So I think that uh it's important to realize that the workers are not, the evil HR department. The workers are not the CEO, and that there's many passionate people working at Blizzard. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that sort of going back to the question I put in the notes of like, is this just in reaction to the lawsuit, or is this like a new philosophy towards design in general? I think that um, the lawsuit situation and the walkout and, a lot of people leaving, I think that it prompted Blizzard to be like, okay, like, I'm optimistic that this could be a fresh start for how they approach things. Because, it's a good
Yeah,
time
I'm
for
optimistic too.
a reset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think we both know that this is probably some kind of damage control
Mm.
in at the core as well, but I think it's still okay to be hopeful because there has been changes at the core of Blizzard. There's been people who've left, people who've been fired, new people hired. So I don't think there's anything wrong with feeling hopeful now that this won't just be a one-time thing, and that they will continue to actually take in feedback and become better at actually doing something about the feedback instead of waiting another year or two.
Yeah, like if we were saying in 2020, gee, it seems like the combat team seems really small, between with COVID, slowing down their efforts and now the expansion is delayed. We've been saying that for a while, and if it took the chaos of the lawsuit for the Warcraft team to get more staff approved, the end result is that the demands are being met. Or if,
Yeah,
the lawsuit was like, oh, people are
that's true. The
upset, let's do
combat team
things
was
to.
expanded, right? It wasn't just
Yeah, they're
people left
hiring
and
three
they rehired.
positions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that was a case of just being expanded, more resources.
Yeah. And maybe with like Diablo Immortal was delayed and that won't be in the fall, so now they need like a quality of life WoW patch to, keep investors and numbers up. That could be one thing, but it could also be, hey, if like supervisors are being let go, if there's like more sensitivity training or like HR is getting a revamp, maybe the workers feel more empowered to push for ideas that they wanted in the past that got, shut down. Like I'm sure there were people that really wanted, there to be swappable covenants. And maybe Blizzard's like, with everything going on and the discontent, let's try something else as a fresh start. As well as a sense of, oh God, like if so many people are leaving and COVID is really slowing down development, we really need to be smart on how we develop things and not
Yeah.
just ignore all of our old content. So, like, we need to start thinking about how to keep things sustainable here. So, maybe that has something to do with it as well. Because a lot of this is like trying to resurrect legacy content again, or
Mm-hmm.
like little things that are high impact that are crowd pleasers, like customization, instead of the old fashioned, oh, we made a system and now we can measure how many people participated in the system.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will kickstart like a new philosophy moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we'll see, in 9.2 or 10.0
Remains to
if,
see. Yeah.
yeah. But, people are very critical of Blizzard right now.
Yeah.
And
I mean, which is
yeah.
rightly deserved, of course.
And yeah, I mean, I think that they need to choose their words like very carefully, and people will be, really looking at
Words
the
and
options they're
actions.
doing.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's not a lot of spare goodwill. So if people think that another game has better customization, or it's more relaxing to play on their alts, or they're not feeling like super social, so they want to, just like zone out and play for a few hours and don't want to deal with, you know, bots in LFG or being yelled at for being the wrong covenant, they're not going to just
Yeah.
tolerate WoW. They're going to play another game, whether it's an MMO or a different genre.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
And we
yeah.
have, yeah, I think with that, we actually discussed all of the 915
Hmm.
things as a whole. And
Yeah.
there were a few promotions actually in line for cross promoting or cross promotion between WoW and Hearthstone. Two of them,
Yeah.
even,
Very
which is
surprising.
interesting. Yeah. We haven't seen a Hearthstone promotion since, what was it, MOP?
Yeah, when you could get the Hearthsteed by like winning games in Hearthstone.
Yeah. That was a long
So,
time ago.
yeah. So, it's interesting how there's all this retail news and then some TBC news we'll get to, and now there's Hearthstone stuff. Almost like they're trying to like fill up a void left by Diablo Immortal not being in 2021 anymore.
Mm.
So the first thing is that you can still get the mount with the 6 month WoW subscription, but now you will get a bunch of Hearthstone card packs as well uh,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
on October 12th. And if you have any game time, extra game time by December, you get even more packs. So it's interesting. I guess they really maybe that game suffered as well, or they're trying to do a better job cross-linking games. Maybe that's something that got lost. I know people have been like, "Why doesn't WoW do Twitch drops? Why?" It's been years since they've done a promotion, so maybe we're gonna see more of these. Um,
More
I like that
promotions.
they're adding value to the 6 month subscription. Um, you know, if it exists, might as well give people more stuff for the price of it.
I mean,
Um
that's true. That's true because
yeah.
they've been doing these 6 month subscription mount stuff for a while now. And if now you get things in other games at the same time, I guess the more things, the better.
Yeah, the thing which I thought was even more surprising was you get amount in WoW if you play Hearthstone Mercenary. Um I don't see in the notes any, but if you want to highlight the mouse, it's under free mount in WoW if you do stuff in Hearthstone, because it looks pretty cool.
Oh,
Um,
the mount for playing Hearthstone? Yeah, I see it
yeah,
actually. The mouse.
yeah.
Here it
Um,
is.
at first I thought it looked like I'm actually okay with this model because at first glance I thought it looked like the shop mount, the Year of the Rat mount.
Mm-hmm.
But I like how you get this by doing something in Hearthstone. So, if you want a mouse pet, you can actually play a game for it. You don't have to spend money. So I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
how
that's
there's this
true. Like this one
alternate
is
unique
not.
mount for it.
Yeah, this one is not actually paying money. This one is playing another Blizzard game.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think this is
So
actually
I
much
think,
better than the 6 month promotions.
yeah. So I like how, like, yeah, Blizzard wants to save some of their unique models for the shop and promotions, but they've been a little light on promotions where you can actually feel like you're earning something. So I like the addition of this.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. I wish there were more things like
He
this.
has a Hearthstone card pack thing on the side.
I know, I think that's super cute. And
That
he's
is
got the
cute.
little mana crystal by his saddle.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like stuff in this vein. I think it's cool.
Yeah. Play other games and
So
get things in other games. Like I think that's cool. Um, any kind of crossovers I think are always cool,
I
especially if they're free
remember
to do.
I forget. I think I'm. I remember when Classic came out. I want to say on like the Brazilian website, there was wording implying that if you hit level 60 in Classic, you would have gotten something in the retail game. Like maybe it was, I don't know, game time or a boost or something. And the text got removed from the website soon after. Like it was sort of an unreliable source. But people were
Mm,
really excited about that. And it wasn't like you
yeah.
would get a boost in Classic WoW. It was like, oh, if I do something cool in Classic, people could see my accomplishment in
Oh, like
another
maybe like an
game.
achievement or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think people would be okay with that, honestly. If you were given
yeah.
achievements in retail for doing things in Classic, because I think people would not like to see any kind of achievements or anything like that
No,
in
no, no, no.
Classic.
Yeah,
But
right.
the other way around, I think could actually be okay.
Like,
Um,
what if you hit 70 in Burning Crusade Classic, and the mount that was from the Dark Portal Pass, you unlock that in retail. So you could use it, and people on retail could see that you hit max level in the other version of the game. Like, I think that would have been more like a better use of the artwork than the boost.
I mean, do you mean so you wouldn't have gotten the mount in the way that they were sold?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like if they didn't do, I don't know. Suppose like Dark Portal Pass wasn't a thing. Like suppose
Yeah, yeah.
this.
So instead, it's just
Yeah,
leveling and then
yeah,
playing the game. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And like if Blizzard wanted to make a Burning Crusade style mount, they didn't necessarily need to tie it to the shop. It could be like, oh, as a reward for grinding this out in Burning Crusade, now you've unlocked this like retro mount in retail. So like that way it keeps Burning Crusade pristine, and then
I agree.
you could
Mm-hmm.
still feel like special, and the team could have this cool looking
Mm-hmm.
mount, and it could remind people in retail like, oh, why do they have this weird looking mount? Oh, I've looked it up. Oh yeah, I should play this other version of the game sometime.
Yeah,
um
especially in
could be a
downtime.
good reminder.
Yep,
Yeah, like I'm sure
absolutely.
this mouse mount will be like, people will remind people to play Hearthstone. Will be
Yep.
like, why does it look so cool? Or, oh, I haven't played in a while. Like, oh yeah, like I had so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
um so yeah, I hope they do more promotions. I think that would be good.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
um
And speaking of
Speaking,
TBC,
yeah. Burning Crusade, a classic. Um we were talking about how with Shadowlands Development there was like 4 blue posts kind of saying similar things but not exactly. Burning Crusade had a similar situation last week where like you had to like piece all the things together to learn what's happening. Phase 2 has a staggered launch starting today. And the content is happening between now and September 15th. The things happening today are the LFG tool and the guild bank. Um, because engineering goggles and Swift Lightform are on the PTR, many assumed they were coming today. They are not available today. So they are probably coming on the 15th, along with new reputations and Serpentine Cavern and Tempest Keep raids.
yep.
So, Blizzard trying to take advantage of that, like, Labor Day weekend, like back to school, void that left by New World, which, then got delayed a month. So
Yep.
they're trying to drop all their TBC content in that opening.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. No promotions with that so far, thank God. No like armor boost situation.
A
Um,
new mount for phase two.
yeah.
But there was a
Many
confirmed
players,
classic fresh player. I mean, classic fresh
yeah.
server.
Yeah, so they did not tease they don't have a deadline yet, but after all those surveys being like, oh, like what do you think of fresh if we just happen to do something?
Mm-hmm.
Um they explicitly stated they in their blue post there was a line of we are working on something for WoW Classic players who have told us they'd like a chance at a fresh start, and we will be sharing more on our plans soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are really excited about this because now that we've actually had time to play through all of Classic and seeing how things didn't turn out how we expected, or it felt like new players were left behind versus like veterans thought it was too easy and there were, bots everywhere. Um, I think people are hoping that there's potential for, Classic to be like seasons or to play around with some changes and make it better. Hopefully that doesn't mean changes like, you know, WoW token or like Classic shop
Yeah.
mount. That would be
Mm-hmm.
bad,
Yeah.
but I do like there was a big engagement drop off, I feel, um with Classic the first time around, and I do think that
Yeah, I don't
maybe
think TBC was
Blizzard.
even nearly as
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah, well, I do think part of that is because, at least with a casual player, um, the outland zones didn't really change. So, like, you could still play through the questing on retail and it would be relatively the same. But with Classic, like, so many zones were different that even if you were, like, super casual and only did the starting zones, like, the Night Elf one is completely different from what you
Yeah.
can choose in retail.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I do think that if they do like a seasonal route, that could be interesting, or trying to make the raids more difficult. Like I remember watching the AQ race to world first, and like the most interesting part was when Viscidus was like actually a challenge.
I agree.
So
Yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
I think making things more difficult could reflect the spirit of WoW Classic, where it was having to like be resourceful and try new
Mm-hmm.
things as opposed to just like super optimizing it with like more sophisticated add-ons and theory crafting. I think
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic, although I do think some of the Burning Crusade choices have been questionable,
Mm-hmm.
but hopefully we get a lot more surveys on Classic fresh, and maybe if they go in the right direction with this, it can mean that they design future Classic experiences to be more popular, so we
Yeah.
don't have something that feels like, I don't know, like it's too boring or like a face roll to do if you have enough time to play it. But yeah, I hope they do fresh. Like I know a lot of private servers, like they'll tweak some things and people enjoy playing that version of the game with a twist. So it would make business sense for Blizzard to try to offer like alternate, versions of Classic,
Mm-hmm.
since that's proven to be popular elsewhere.
Exactly. Like, I think private servers have forever kind of started up new servers to replay everything, and I think people do find that interesting, especially if they find that their server right now is maybe ruined, like the horde domination is too high, or the economy is ruined by all the mages, or any kind of thing that makes a server that's old not as fun to play. So I think having new servers can definitely be fun for the people who are dedicated in playing classic, and especially if you're in a server that might not be very active, then having just one or very few new fresh servers would bring all the active players together again. So I think that's always going to be a good thing for those who are interested.
Yeah, I mean, also there's just the like looming cloud of, the bots, the hackers, the,
Yeah.
boosting. Like, we talk about how the maybe high end isn't fun if people were raid logging with buffs, or the bosses,
Mm-hmm.
seemed easy and it wasn't much of a challenge. But, on the casual end, like if you're someone coming over from retail and like you're sold on this vision that Classic is about, uh, meeting other players in the world and, forming connections, and it's a ghost town because people are just boosting in higher level dungeons, and it's a lot more prevalent than in retail WoW. It's like maybe we should curb that behavior.
Yeah.
Maybe we should try to get people looking for a fun game to play, having them actually go out in the world again, because the experience won't be like dwarfed by the efficiency of mage boosting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I think I think all that would be good. Um, there is a relatively new team, which at first everyone was kind of bummed about, but maybe in retrospect it's good to have fresh blood as we're seeing that work out for, Blizzard with the co-leads. So, maybe it's good to have people that like weren't, overshadowed by like the rock star culture or, friends with people in that group.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, I just know a lot of people are really passionate about this, so I hope Blizzard does a lot more like testing and summits. I mean, I know quarantine probably made Burning Crusade Summit difficult, but they did a really good summit for Classic, I thought, where like they were talking to influencers that attended the event about what
Yep.
worked. People were giving feedback. They were like looking over our shoulders to like see how we were enjoying the zones. Like it all seemed very positive and professional. And Burning Crusade, lacked that, maybe for logistical reasons, but I definitely feel like Classic Fresh could be really good, or it could be really bad, and they have to address sort of the bots and the boosting at the core of it.
Yep.
Um,
We have
so for the
one more
final
gaming
thing,
news.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
before the lawsuit, this was an interesting find, and I thought it was really cool because you know, the 9.1 has been out for a while, but there's always like little pieces in the data that come to light later on. And there's been a bunch of armor models and icons for starting gear, and they're like very crisp, high resolution images of like simple armor, which I think a lot of people will be happy with, especially if you can transmog them. There's no items for these, so like we don't know if they're coming, but it would be a cool addition to starting zones. It could maybe motivate people to do the starting zones if they get cool armor. And I think that they're really fun for transmog. Like we've seen that sometimes simple is better, like people getting hype over, glasses. And people were really hype over the Exile Reach weapons that were like simple but, not potato quality.
Yeah, like the
Um
HD versions of those.
Yeah, and like a lot of the old WoW armor like looks very like simple and RPG, but the quality is so bad and pixelated. So I think
Yeah.
it's nice to have these updated versions if they make it to live.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, I mean
Yeah,
they've
they're
definitely a lot
very,
of thought of
very
them in them
simple.
too. Yeah. But like they've got robe versions and pants
Mm-hmm.
versions, so
Mm-hmm.
you could still they have a lot of character in spite of being simple, like lots of armor tints as well. So you could like mix and match these with a lot of things. Um
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
so
that's like the biggest thing as well. If it's very simple colors, you can also, like you said, mix and match with other things too.
yeah, and I remember with Exile's Reach, like not all the weapons made it in. So this could be a good opportunity to find some content where you could get these simple armors and also the weapons. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, Trial of Style is going on right now, and it seems so weird that like nothing happened with the event. Like they didn't keep adding transmog sets. Like I'd be happy if they added some of these simple armor and weapons as rewards from that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, lots of it's funny, like, 9.1's been data mined for so many months, and there's always like something new, like a little thread that can lead to something hype months later.
Yeah, new things that are found and dots connected together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um so yeah, I think that's about it for game news. I'm going to ping our classic moderator to cover a blue post, and then we're going to pivot to discussing the lawsuit
Yes.
stuff.
For the lawsuit developments, there hasn't been an awful lot of things happening, but there has been some very important ones. So the most important one that really stuck out was California Department claiming that Blizzard HR shredded documents that they were meant to hold on to. And that's a huge deal.
Yeah. Um, they said the exact quote I think was that they alleged that the Human Resources Department shredded documents related to the investigation. Activision had a legal obligation to retain those documents, and further alleged that the gaming company has been withholding information relevant to the investigation
Yep.
by doing weird things like using non-disclosure agreements to require employees to first speak with Blizzard before contacting the California department.
Yep.
So
That's really
this
weird.
do, yeah, this does not make Blizzard look very good, and
Mm-hmm.
the HR department has really been in the hot seat. Like the HR lead has resigned. Um, Employees were always told, oh, use the system, just report. And they're like, well, we can't because HR ignored me. They're broken. They were inappropriate to me. Like my claim vanished. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, well, this could explain it if the documents were being like shredded.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, uh, yeah. And, it's just the timing on this was really bad because it was a month after the walkout, and the workers account, had just been tweeting things like, hey, it's been nearly a month, and like none of our demands have been addressed.
Yep.
So it's in stark contrast that the news about Blizzard seems to keep getting worse, while the workers they have their demands that Blizzard is not uh, doing. Like they're not taking any steps to regain trust among workers in meaningful ways, and there's just more bad news, not
Yep.
helping with morale.
Yep.
But yeah, like it just like shredding the documents, I just was
Uh,
wow,
how does that
like
even happen?
yeah, and like
Yeah.
I do, I mean, HR like shredding documents is like something normal in the US that you deal with confidential things after a period of time, but it seems like they were shredding these like too quickly. Um
Mm-hmm.
or they were like maybe they were told not to shred something and then they did. And the NDA thing is really scummy. Like thinking about the Hollywood and Me Too movement, there were so many like NDAs that prevented people from speaking out about their bad experiences. Um, and it just seems scummy to require the employees to talk to Blizzard before complaining about Blizzard.
Yeah.
Like it just like it makes you afraid for your job
Absolutely.
to come forth.
Of course. It's
So
awful
Blizzard,
threats.
this
Mm-hmm.
was pretty explosive when
Yep.
it was announced.
Mm-hmm.
So Blizzard
Yeah. Apparently,
then
Blizzard responded.
yeah. It was weird, right? Because they were saying that they complied with every proper request, um, that they took appropriate steps to preserve information relevant to the investigation. Um, but like that to me that sounds weird. Like to me that sounds like, oh, we shredded things, but not the things we deemed important. Um,
Yeah.
And if you go into the fine print, the California department says that the company failed to maintain proper records, destroying documents 30 days after the involved parties left the company, and the DFEH instead recommends that you keep the documents for 2 years. Like there's one legal document saying keep them for 2 years, and then another document saying you keep wage and employment records by California Labor Code for 3 years. So, it seems that there's maybe like some timeline murkiness going on, or some things were kept, but not as many things could have been kept. I mean, it seems weird that the State Department would lie about these things,
Yeah.
especially with all the
Especially at State
exposés against
Department.
Blizzard and HR.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird how Alex Afrasiabi left the company, and then like Blizzard did nothing with removing the references, and it was only until the lawsuit that they worked really quick to remove them.
Yep.
So it could have been this like, oh, cool, he left you, let's just shred the documents and like move on type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just seeing how the accountability only seems to happen when the spotlight's shown on them.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the statement was weird too, because they're like, oh, we've complied with every proper request in support of its review. We've implementing reforms to ensure our workplaces are welcoming and safe. And they're talking about things like greater transparency on pay equity. And it's like, well, not like I mean,
Where?
you're not directly addressing the employee demands, and people are really upset about pay equity. And
Yeah.
you always see tweets from employees being like, "I'm leaving for Riot," or Riot poaching employees was the best thing to happen to Blizzard because we finally had bargaining power and said we needed more than just the prestige of Blizzard on a resume. Like I think
Yep.
that it's pretty wild they are priding themselves for the pay equity situation. Um, and they're talking about like, oh, we restructured divisions, we created investigation teams, but then that goes back to the employees are unhappy with the law firm Wilmer Hale because of conflict of
Yep.
interest and how their
And they didn't
website is
change
all
anything
like,
about it, did they? Like they're still working
yeah.
with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you're working with the firm that's talking about like protecting, like the management and like the
The
assets and the
union
money
busting.
and union busting, but nothing about the worker rights. So you
Yeah.
can see why people that have bad morale are very skeptical that this firm is going to, be advocating for their interests. Like, it's the saying that, HR isn't here to protect you, HR is to protect the company,
Yeah.
to keep the company running.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but yeah, it definitely feels like there's a disconnect here,
Mm-hmm.
and the transparency on pay equity sounded really similar to Bobby Kodik's line at the investors call, being like, "We've conducted a review and we think we're doing well." Because it's like, are you guys doing well? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's just their demands have not yet been met, and the statement about shredding documents was like very hazy. So I don't know. I didn't think it was a great statement, and I think that the demands need to be taken more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Like the statement sounds like they're sort of patting themselves on the back for what they've done,
Mm-hmm.
and like more and more bad news keeps coming to light.
Mm-hmm. So how long in
Um,
general does this whole lawsuit investigation thing actually go on? Like, does it have an ending? How does
I'm
it
not
work?
sure. I know the Riot one went on for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and the with the shredding of documents, the lawsuit,
It's
the
probably
language
extended.
was also expanded to encompass complaints from temporary workers as well, not just full-time employees. So it could go on a while if they're still modifying it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it seems like really messy with how like most of this is happening at Blizzard, but then like Activision, the parent company, also had some things going on. So it it seems pretty huge, and I know Ubisoft had something similar, and they had some progress, but that's not. The employees are also dissatisfied with how things have been. Like they actually formed their own little workers group and wrote a letter supporting the Activision Blizzard workers and also reiterated their demands.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like this industry wide issue
Yeah.
that was going to take a while to solve beyond the lawsuit.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, our final two topics are kind of
Related
sort
to
of
each
in this
other.
in between area of like they're making change and it's not the worker demands, but the actual workers themselves are trying to sort of clean up the mess other people left, so it's still like a step in the right direction. Um, and yeah, the first is that the Overwatch team announced that they're renaming the hero known as McCree,
Mm-hmm.
because the namesake of the hero was let go from Blizzard 2 weeks ago, as part of the review to make sure that they didn't have employees acting poorly or management that was kind of enabling them or looking the other way.
Yep.
Um, and Blizzard, they released a statement that as we continue to discuss how we best live up to our values and to demonstrate our commitment to creating a game world that reflects them, we believe it's necessary to change the name of the hero currently known as McCree to something that better represents what Overwatch stands for.
Mm-hmm.
They then said that they're going to um, work on like some sort of narrative arc and release his name in the future. And I think what's also important that makes it not just sound like virtue signaling at first glance, which it's not, I'll explain, is that they said in-game characters will no longer be named after real employees, and we will be more thoughtful and discerning about adding real-world references in future Overwatch content. I think that is really important because looking back, it's like, why would you name like a hero after some, dude
Yeah, I
working
actually
on
had
like World of
no
Warcraft?
idea. I had no idea
Yeah,
that was the case. I think that's a terrible idea. I don't know
yeah,
why they would do that because it's a big deal. It's a hero. Like, it's different
yeah,
in World of Warcraft. Let's say it's an item, like a piece of gloves or bracers or chest piece or something. But uh, to put as a hero, that's that's huge. That's
yeah.
crazy.
And it's like, how do we make sure that this doesn't repeat itself? Like it could be like, oh, well, this person's an upstanding guy, like he's always in our top performing bonus tier. Let's name something after him. But it's like, what happens if something horrible is revealed with that person, or they leave the company on bad terms. Now you have a hero named after, like, president of Riot Games, or, something weird. It just seems like very egotistical that this was even a thing in the
Yeah,
first
it's like
place.
idolizing or like I don't know. Yeah, egotistical, I guess, is the better word for it. It's very
Yeah, it's like
strange.
putting ego above like story and immersion.
Yeah.
Like, if the artists have to work so hard to like give off a certain like aesthetic and mood, and then it's like, oh yeah, I named this after my friend, have fun.
Yeah.
um and I do want to say that, just changing the name maybe sounds flipper, like, oh, virtue signaling, like, thanks, Overwatch, but it's a big deal. Like, there's a lot of money going into this because you have to,
You have to
change
redo everything.
every voice actor's line has to be redone in every single language, not just the heroes, but all the characters. Like when they say hello, like the merchandise has to be changed. Like any artwork that showed that character's name has to be changed. There's, esports. If there's like statistics showing who plays what, that has to be changed. There's a lot of different parts that have to be changed. Like if they just wanted to do like some easy virtue signaling thing, like renaming the hero is not the easy, quick, lazy thing to do.
No. Like
There's a lot
In
of work
WoW,
that goes into it.
the things that were removed in WoW is really easy and they can do that overnight. But renaming a hero, there's so much. Like you mentioned merch and things like that already. Anything that has been made has to be remade for
Mm.
with this new name, and the things that have been made, I'm sure you know that there's figurines and whatnot. Anything that has been made, if it's got the wrong name on it,
The
it's
packaging.
it's going to have to be deleted. Like you
Mm.
can't
Yeah.
change things that have been created. So you're basically burning and just deleting, scrapping junk, things
Mm.
that you didn't have a chance to sell yet. Let's say, and so it is a very big deal.
Yeah, and then plus the content that's going to be created to um, reveal the new name, and then the naming process for future things will be under more scrutiny. Um, as they're saying we want to be better about adding real world references in future Overwatch content. I mean, I'm sure they'll think twice before doing something flip like, oh yeah, let's name the party room the Cosby Suite. Like, even though he wasn't under, trial at the time, everyone in the entertainment industry knew he was weird, like they don't want any gray area stuff. So there'll probably
Yeah,
be like more intense vetting if they do make a pop culture reference and then just being like, oh yeah, this guy's like weird, but he's also funny. Let's, let's like name something after him.
yeah.
So I think that, it's not a worker demand, but the workers are not the ones that can fire Wilmer Hale. The workers can do things like removing references to employees that Blizzard removed. Like they can make a
Mm-hmm.
better environment for themselves and change policies, even though I know people are impatient that like Overwatch hasn't been releasing content, but it's like this is what they can do at the time, and they should have been doing this like regardless of how fast they release content. Like this should have been a rule in place when original Overwatch was being developed,
Yeah, sure.
not to just name things after longtime employees.
Mm-hmm. And something
And it's
like
like
a
it's such a
hero
weird
because it's.
dynamic too.
Mm-hmm.
Like suppose you're trying to impress someone higher up. It's like, oh, I'll name something after you, or oh, uh
Like, how was that even
this
decided?
yeah, it's like, what are you gonna say? Oh, I don't want this item named after my boss. Like, no one wants to speak up, and then it's like, oh, like, now does my boss hate me for like being, not fun, or just being like, the boring one in the group. It's I think it ties into social cliques as well, because you don't want to be the person that was complaining about like a high ranking employee getting stuff named after them. That seems like
Mm-hmm.
it would put you on the outs really quickly, especially with that employee.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it definitely seems that uh the mess that this has caused with all the resources is definitely making Blizzard think twice before adding something like this again, which
Mm-hmm.
they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the final thing is that we touched upon how Alex Afrasiabi had references removed, and
Yep.
between a Washington Post article and one of the 915 update posts, we've learned that Blizzard is removing references to more employees in World of Warcraft, including the ones that were recently let go. Like McCree is going to have some of his references removed in WoW, as well as the Diablo 4 game director and the WoW senior game designer, Jonathan
It's
LeCraft.
actually crazy.
Um,
How are there so many
I
references
know, like
everywhere?
Kraft has like so many, like he has like a dozen NPCs named after him.
That's
It's like
crazy.
why? Like there's just so many. Like why do you need these many references named after yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Um and yeah, this was confirmed first to the Washington Post, and then the dev update said um the patch has updates to improve the game environment for our community, including additional changes to some content to better reflect our shared values, better visibility into the impact of your in-game reports of harassment, and more serious penalties for people engaged in disruptive behavior. So that first part of the sentence about changes to content, that is indirectly referencing how they're going to be removing, uh, these references. Um, and the wildest thing is that the Legion zone in Argus was named after the employee, but a former Blizzard employee said, I thought it was really strange that we had to name this zone after an employee. I thought it was silly that the capital city of Argus was named after that dev, so I asked all of our voiceover team for the zone to pronounce it differently. So she could have saved Blizzard a ton of money. Like we were just saying that the
Yeah.
Overwatch took more effort than WoW. It's just changing an item, but when you name like a major place, characters are going to reference it, and this could have led to a ton of voiceover work as well. And she may have, who knows, maybe they'll still re-record it, so it's like more different. But I think that it shows that at the time, this person who was not a high up CEO, top level of Blizzard, was like, yeah, this is kind of weird. It's named after, a guy. Let me try to push for change. Like, it shows that even though Blizzard did bad
That's
things, it
really
wasn't just a
interesting.
hive
So,
mind.
yeah, so even back then, she felt it was weird that they named it after this employer. So she tried to
Yeah.
change the pronunciation to make it feel
Hmm.
less weird.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
So,
It's a name of a zone. Like, it's different
yeah.
if one employee has, a character that's put somewhere in the world. I think that makes sense. Not 12 characters, but,
Yeah.
maybe one character. But naming things that, like zones, heroes,
Yeah.
I mean, heroes in Overwatch, like it's next level.
Yeah, and I know people are like, "Oh, I didn't even realize the zone was named after this guy," Blizzard focusing on the wrong things, but it's like if we're trying to put the needs of the workers first, like it must be really weird if your supervisor did something to warrant being let go from Blizzard, and every time you have to go to work and think about the zone, you're like, "Oh, here's a monument to the guy who was fired." Like it's weird if you're an employee. And I think that yes, if you are just a casual player, you don't know the full story, you might be like, oh, priorities, renaming a zone, where's the equal pay? But this sends a message from within the Warcraft team that they're not going to stand for this like symbol of ego. Like
Yeah.
it's like so extra and egotistical to just have all these things named after yourself. It's a good sign of company culture that they are taking a hard line on this and changing their policies, removing all these ego references, and like we were saying, it could help make the internal working conditions better, so you're not like dealing with cliques of oh, you don't support naming this after your boss, like bad behavior, like difficult to work with type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's good, and we shouldn't be mad that the WoW Quest team is removing references because they don't have the bargaining power to uh fire Wilmer Hale. Like they're doing what they can on their own level to make their office culture safer and implement better practices moving forward.
Yeah.
Um, and this is like separate from whatever you think about covenant or class balance. This is just, I think, a good thing to do for working conditions, sort of no matter where you work. Like it would be weird if you weren't in like the games industry and I don't know, like someone had like 10 statues of themselves around like an office, or it would be weird if there were similar things in different industries, um to this extent. It's just good to
Yep.
curb this behavior.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. A little bit distracted because Luna is right in my face.
That's all right. The cat's like, I think this zone is dumb.
But yeah, definitely a good point about the workers' experience too. If in the office they felt awkward about it, that many years ago, then after these stories come out, it must be even more weird. So I think it's good to clean those things up.
Yeah, and then it snowballs. Like everyone is like, oh, Argus, was handled really quickly, or maybe with this, cosmic forces, we'll learn more about like Sargeras and what he intended, or hey, the Draenei don't have heritage armor, and it's like maybe a zone in Legion seems obscure or like not worth it to you, but what happens if it's relevant to the story again? Then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, like suppose it needs voiceover, or like we learn more about Velen, or it's the like escape from Argus is how you get the Draenei heritage armor. Suddenly, it becomes a big deal.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something that Blizzard should have curtailed earlier on, and better late than never. And I think it's possible to want the game to be balanced better while also recognizing that people on other teams are trying to clean things up. And it's also weird if we're like, oh, like this is dumb. I wish things were balanced better, because then it's like, well, we should, even if things are balanced perfectly, we still need to care about the working conditions at Blizzard. It's not like you get to pick one. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah.
Exactly.
So it feels like every week there's like sort of new upsetting news. Like the shredding documents really got to me.
Yeah.
So I don't think this will stop anytime soon. I think whenever we data mine patch 915, we're going to see what actually got changed with all of these employees. Um, And yeah, I hope at some point we'll have an update that's worker demands were listened to, because it's so bad that it keeps being in the news, and the things the workers actually want are not at the center of it.
Yep. Hopefully soon they can become more of a focus.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that about wraps up the show for
Yeah, I think Luna knows as
today.
well. She's like, "Hey, mom,
Yeah.
I looked at your notes and you're done. Okay, so can you just give me all the attention now?"
Yeah.
But yeah, that was indeed all of the news for today. We had lots of gameplay things and that are upcoming, both retail and classic, and then also the development of the lawsuit, and also Luna being here. There was a question in the chat about the Lich King box in the bottom left corner of your room perk, and that
Oh
is
yeah.
the helm.
Yeah, let me see if I can
Mine
move
is
it.
actually out here, so it's basically this helmet's original box. That's what that
Yeah,
is.
so it's this.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah. Um yeah, sort of a
Helm
side
of
effect of the
domination.
lawsuit is that the whole like monthly cool collectibles, the hype behind that has really died down, and really bad timing, because there was a really cute Pepe Bird plush for SDCC right in the middle of the lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, the merch teams aren't involved in this, but they also
Yeah.
suffer, because like
Yep.
now's not the time to tell people to buy Blizzard merch, but it's cool merch that unrelated teams have made that were talented.
Yep. I have mine out here, and I've also installed a light so I can change the color of the eyes here. Don't know if it's very visible, but now they're blue, now they're red, pink, green. So it's just Lich King
Yeah.
watching us from behind. Okay, Luna really wants her cuddles. But yeah,
Aww.
thank you everyone very, very much for watching today. And we will continue doing what we do next week with all
Yeah,
of the
hopefully we'll
news
have some
between now and
data
then.
mining before then. That would be cool.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Yeah, so if there's 915 this week, stay tuned for Stevan doing his usual like data mining
Yeah, he
stream with
can
all the new
appear on the
models.
stream. Yep.
Yeah. So fingers crossed we'll have that this week. The first one is always the most fun because the bulk of the models and armor make it in at the start.
Yep. Luna is cleaning my hand apparently, an arm.
Aww. Well, we'll let Luna, it's like nighttime in Sweden, so we'll let Luna
Yeah.
steal the show.
Yeah.
And
And we'll
yeah,
see you all
we'll head
next
off.
week. Thank you guys
Yep.
again for watching. And also, quick shout out to we had a sub earlier. We had Colnaris with the 4-month resub. Thank you very much for supporting Wowhead. And we'll be back next week.
Yep.
Thank you
Bye.
everyone for watching. And bye.
Have a great week.
Yep.